Man, Steve fucked this whole week up. Minecraft Steve. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Steve is full of chaos magic.
I never even played Minecraft, to be honest, but I never really liked Legos. I was like never really too good at like building stuff. It was always just like, look, it's a spaceship. It was just a bunch of like flat stuff.
You didn't like Legos? What kind of kid were you?
Everything looked like a Star Destroyer. That's what I'm saying. It was just like, all right, cool. Or as a house. So I just got bored with Legos, and that's why I never played Minecraft. So,
Dude, if all you got from Legos was a Star Destroyer and a house, that's user error.
I'm just not into those types of games, really. Like, where it's just like, be creative. I'm like, you do it. You be creative, bitch. I paid for it.
I paid for you to be creative, not me.
Yeah, I'm creative all the time. I'm not here for this shit. I need a break. Hey, I'm Fingers.
Hey everyone, this is Days Ahead.
And I'm Nitroid. You're listening to the Kojima Frequency. Have you taken a look at what the Smash Brothers mural looks like now?
No.
With as many characters as they've added?
I haven't.
I swear to God, ever since they added Minecraft Steve to it, it looks like what you would expect to see if you hit top results on DeviantArt. Ugh.
I remember seeing like at E3 and it was already like huge. Now they've added all these other people. It's probably just gonna look ridiculous by now.
And they got like 6 more. Just put Dante in, just so everybody will shut up.
That's what they did with Steve. That's probably what Nintendo said. They said, put Steve in to get these kids to shut up and buy our game.
And Sakurai was like, no, I want to put in like 5 more Fire Emblem characters.
Well, people are joking that like, oh, well, now we have another anime swordsman.
Put in Fortnite.
I mean, oh God, no, please.
Put in Travis Scott.
Dude,
Yeah, he's in everything else.
we are like 8 steps away from Goku now. You know how they have like the Doomsday clock?
Yeah.
We need to have like a Goku and Smash clock. It's at like 11 o'clock now.
God, who else can they even add, like, realistically? Dante at least sort of makes sense.
Gino. They could do like the full Mario RPG catalog. That'd be dope.
Yeah, but have they ever, like, taken a character that they've made one of those Mii outfits and turned it into a full character?
I feel like they have.
Because I've noticed, like, 2 unspoken rules to this seems to be, 1, the character can't already be one of the Mii outfits. And 2, the character had to have started in a video game. If it came from anything else, they won't put it in. Like, it can have been in other things, but it had to, like, start in a video game.
Okay, so Goku's kind of off the table then.
Sorry, Dragon Ball fans.
Yeah.
You just gotta believe.
This meme magic will get Goku in.
I mean,
It's either that or Doomslayer.
All right, now you're talking.
Doom guy.
my personal favorite, you always are supposed to have like your personal favorite that's plausible, like something that's out of left field, and then like what's probably gonna happen. And I guess my like plausible one is the Hunter of Monsters. Because, like, they've been showing so much, this exclusive, timed exclusive Monster Hunter information. So, I'm assuming that it's going to align with something that Smash is going to do with Monster Hunter. There's already the Rathalos in Smash.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's already in there, so where's the Hunter?
Yeah, exactly. And then the trailer for that new Monster Hunter game on the Switch, they have, I think it's like the Grand Master or whatever his name is, like grabbing an envelope for the hunter. And I like freaked out for a second and then it didn't happen. Look, I'm just saying, if you're going to put a trailer in a Nintendo Direct, don't have a moment where your characters fuck with an envelope unless it has to do with Smash. Like, this should be some unspoken rule.
You just don't do that.
Yeah, you don't fuck with people. That's how people get like aneurysms and shit.
Speaking of Monster Hunter, did you see the teaser that dropped today?
And speaking of aneurysms, yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. So it's exactly how I expected it to look.
I had to laugh because the very top comment to the teaser was, "I'm not even a fan of Monster Hunter, but I feel sorry for the people who are."
Nitro Rad said, this looks like they accidentally made a movie out of the Monster Hunter missions in Peace Walker.
Right?
God, that's really accurate.
It is. Except that instead of getting, like, Big Boss, we get Mila
Mila Jovovich again. God damn it.
making, like, the same face the whole movie. Which, don't get me wrong, I mean, I love her, but...
What are you going to say? Paul Anderson's wife's got to work.
She's in so much shit. She's like a running theme in this podcast. This is stupid.
Can we get her on?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm a little worried if we keep talking about her, she'll end up in the Metal Gear movie.
Yeah, we keep talking about, like, memeing things into existence.
This is a self-fulfilling prophecy waiting to happen.
Yeah, and she's gonna infiltrate Shadow, like I said in like a few episodes ago, she's gonna infiltrate Shadow Moses. She's gonna have two side characters help her, Meryl and Snake. And then, like, Snake is gonna fall in love with her.
She's gonna wake up in Shadow Moses. Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah, she's gonna wake up in Shadow
Not know
Moses.
who
She's
she
probably
is.
she's gonna wake up in the new world in this movie. I bet you $5 in the Iceborne expansion that she is going to wake up. Her crew might still be like conscious, but she's gonna like wake up in the middle of the new world and be like, "What is this?" Right before Rathalos just like swoops down.
Yeah, that movie's probably gonna suck. I don't know. What have y'all been playing this week?
A lot of Among Us.
Yeah.
And what do you think about it?
I think it makes you a very good liar.
Well, that
And
makes one of us.
Yeah, you got to learn how to manipulate your friends. And you feel kind of scummy after each round, like, God, I really took advantage of them, didn't I? But it's also really satisfying.
It's social engineering, really.
It is. It really is.
Just training kids to be deceptive and to vote.
Damn.
I guess that's the kind of game that we need right now.
I've also been playing a bit of the original Demon's Souls.
Are you getting ready?
No, I don't like the remake. I'm probably the only person on the planet, but
Not even gonna give it a shot.
I don't know, maybe just for lack of games on the PS5, but
Yeah.
I don't like the look of it. I feel like they completely misunderstood the tone of the original.
You know, I figured you would give it a chance because it is being developed by Blue Point, and as you know, Blue Point made the Metal Gear Solid HD remakes. But I think, in terms of, I guess now instead of looking at history, we're looking more so at the fidelity of it all. And whereas, Metal Gear was sort of 1-to-1, I guess they are throwing in their interpretation of Demon's Souls with this remake. It's a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little more invasive, I guess.
It reminds me more of Diablo than Demon's Souls.
Interesting.
And I'll probably give it a shot. I'm sure mechanically it'll be fine.
I think it's just like the color palette and just like the art direction, kind of just like what they're doing.
Yeah, and just monster design as well. Like the Vanguard right off the bat looks nothing like he did originally, but it looks like what you would expect a bro gamer remake of that monster to look like.
Gotcha.
And all I can think of is it reminds me so much of the remake of Shadow of the Colossus, which I know I'm kind of bucking popular opinion here, but I felt like they misunderstood that too.
Yeah.
Like Blue Point's whole approach seems to be, let's make it more beautiful, right? And more
dust it
detailed.
off, yeah.
And like they don't seem to understand that this wasn't necessarily a side effect of the lack of graphical capability of the platform it was on. Like these were also very intentional design choices. So like Shadow of the Colossus, you go into this world and it's very desolate and unwelcoming and barren and life is sparse and you're supposed to feel like this land is dead that you're walking into. It is forbidden.
Yeah.
And then you go into the remake and it's lush and beautiful and bright green and it it's a completely different feel.
They just don't appreciate the patina. They're like, let's clean that off with some Windex. Just get that
You're
off
right.
of here. Jesus, what is
And
this? Dirty shit.
I'm glad you made that point about, there's a balance between the graphical limitations and the art direction, because I do feel like in some ways Shadow of the Colossus was a product of its time, where some of those limitations really brought out and emphasized the art direction of what they were going for. And in that way, you know, it's why I kind of don't want a Silent Hill 1 remake, particularly particularly a Silent Hill 1 remake.
Now without
Because-
fog.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Holy
you couldn't
fuck.
see anything. We had to clean that up.
But yeah, like beyond just like, you know, whatever the remake developer's opinion on fog is, I feel like that sort of aliased, rigid PlayStation polygon, low polygonal look of Silent Hill 1 really brought out the art direction of this like B horror movie that leaves sort of a lot to your imagination. So I don't want that to be cleaned up. I don't want to give that more polygons. I want that as it is.
Yeah, you are spot on. And to that point, you know, PS1 has become sort of an indie game aesthetic that's grown in popularity over the past several years. So like, there's this one group that I keep an eye on because they churn out some interesting things, and I'm probably going to mess up the name, but I think it's like Haunted PS1. But they're sort of like this retro indie game group that specifically tries to collect people who are making PS1 style horror games, you know, or games in that aesthetic. And and you get all these cool little experiments, and you know, they're hit and miss, but that's a whole scene now of like, let's make a PS1 style game, and there's a lot of interesting stuff out there.
So you just reminded me, I'm trying to find their Twitter account right now. Oh gosh, if I find it, I need to find this, because if I don't and I don't credit them correctly, I'm going to feel like the biggest asshole. But there's this art account, I think it's called like the D Generator or something like that. And it takes modern assets from video games and it brings them down to like a PS1 3D level. And I think
I know what you're talking about.
It makes it like isometric. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's like demakes, right?
Yeah.
Because I know about like the PS1 demake channel.
It's sort of like retro wave, right? And I really appreciate it. I think it's if this is going to be the next indie wave, I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm wondering what's going to follow it too, because right now PS1 is sort of the hot thing. But are we going to like go into PS2 next? Because then that's just like sort of low budget indie game anyway. So it's not so much a style.
One game I've been playing this week is Blazing Chrome, and that's kind of like this like hyper evolved version of like 16-bit, you know, where it's like damn good sprite art, you know, where it's not just like look at me, I'm 8-bit, kind of like Metal Slug, you know, like how those characters and sprites looked, where it was like this is a step above what they're doing on consoles at the time. So that game's really fun. It's basically just like a Contra, like a Super Contra, but you know, done now.
I was going to say, I haven't played it, but I've seen it, and it's pretty impressive what they're able to pull off.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And I love seeing devs now that are kind of revisiting these older games and saying, okay, well, now that we've got these tools and this knowledge of what these old games are like, let's go back and try to not just improve upon it, but make something in that vein that is faithful to the period, but is also more informed than those developers might have been at the time, because we have all these extra things that we can work with.
Yeah, that game, The Messenger by Sabotage Studios, that was a good example of that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like something that would have been out of place at that time. It just feels like, oh, this is that, but of a higher caliber.
Yeah.
So I think I found the guy's name. His name is The Regressor. It's mostly art. So it's not like anything that's in a particular model or in a game or anything like that. But not only does he break down the models to something like sort of these polygon, like low poly count models, but he also adds, you know, a very rigid animation to them as well.
Okay, yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's very PS1-esque, yeah. Or it's like maybe, I don't know how many frames that run cycle is, but...
Right, exactly.
And there's a subtlety to making it seem like it's an authentic piece from that period.
Yeah.
because there are a lot of low poly game makers and artists who it doesn't quite fit that aesthetic, because a lot of the time when they made these games in that period, they were working under very heavy restrictions. And when you don't have those restrictions, you're just trying to kind of emulate it. It doesn't come off the same way. And this sort of reminds me of why I'm hesitant to want a remake of MGS1, and despite the fact that like everybody wants a remake and everybody wants Blue Point to do it. That terrifies me. And it has to do with those reasons I mentioned earlier, where I don't feel like they understand visual tone very well. They just they mistake more detail, more color with better art direction, and that's not necessarily the same thing. If you go back and you look at MGS1 on the PS1, and then you compare it to the Twin Snakes, in terms of just not looking at model fidelity, but looking at something like color design, there is no comparison at all. The Twin Snakes is bland and gray and just utterly uninteresting, in my opinion, compared to MGS1 that's doing these subtle things with blue and green, and there's not a whole lot of like gray. It's working with shadow very carefully, but it's actually a very colorful game.
Yeah.
And the Twin Snakes is almost devoid of color in a lot of ways.
That was a very like 2004 thing to do, though, you know?
Yeah,
That's true.
But my point is this, like, that was a game that was supervised by Kojima Productions. It was made by Silicon Knights, and I believe, to be fair, it was made in a very short span of time, but it was supervised by the original team. So even then, it didn't quite meet up to that caliber, in my opinion, in terms of overall design. So, like, I'm just worried now that we've got the major artistic influences of Metal Gear Solid have been, they're no longer there. So if there's going to be a remake, it's just going to be a lot of deep blues and high contrast. I think that's more or less what it's going to look like.
I mean, what do you think about with like the good old games version? I mean, with Integral, is that an improvement with this edition that just came out over what, with like how it kind of looks sharper and all the textures and everything?
I don't think so, but I know some people really like how that looks, and I get that.
I'm just saying, did it look like that in the original version of Integral? Was it that like polished up like with the pixels and stuff, or is that a new addition to the GOG version?
That is a new addition where they
Okay.
do the texture filtering and they make it look smoother. That's brand new.
Gotcha.
Integral was more or less the exact same as MGS1, but with additions to it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I never played that on PC, so I just have like no frame of reference. So I just look at this one, I'm like, hey, that actually looks pretty good. Kind of, sharpened up a bit. I can appreciate the PS1 version as well, but
It's kind of funny, if you have a way to play MGS1 Integral, the game is fully English. Yeah, I mean, well, there's like a few things that aren't, but the idea behind Integral was Kojima was such a big fan of the English voice acting that they did a re-release that had the English voice acting.
Okay.
And you can set the text to English as well. So minus a few things, the game's almost entirely in English.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, as long as you have a method to play an imported PS1 game, there you go.
Going back to the point about the filtered textures, I know I'm going to sound a bit like a hypocrite when I say this, but I kind of don't think that they were, like, I think they were an improvement, but I don't think it affected the tone of the game and the art direction. Like, they just look better.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like they muted any of the atmosphere of Shadow Moses. And that is like a huge thing for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's why I appreciate it. I'm just like, all right, cool. That they did what they could do with what they had. They weren't trying to replace models or do, it's just like everything just looks sharper and cleaner.
Yeah, and they weren't adjusting the colors.
It's pretty crazy actually with like the release on PC, like the speedrun community, they're like right back on it.
They've been chomping at the bit for something new.
Fired up. Give me a new version to play and exploit and beat. Yeah.
And how? I actually had one of the speedrunners. I've been streaming Metal Gear Solid 1, and one of the speedrunners, Perfect Stealth, he's been adding little tidbits in the chat about, like, okay, well, this is what the speedrunners have been doing. So, yeah, definitely a reignited passion there.
They're getting real competitive, too. I think they already are having some, like, showdowns. I think on October 9th. I think this episode will be out before then for sure. So yeah, on October 9th at, let's see, 1300 PDT and 2100 GMT. Gotta love that across the pond timestamp.
Everybody's Googling that now to figure out what what time. Like,
Insert
what is that in
conversion time
American?
now. Yeah. But over on twitch.tv / Perfect Stealth is where he'll be hosting his version, and then twitch.tv / Adam_online. He'll be they're both gonna be streaming. They're gonna be doing a race to just see who can do it faster. I think it's all just gonna be live, so
Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch.
Definitely tune into that.
And they've been like, from my understanding, they've been like practicing and talking shit. So, that's always promising.
Nice healthy rivalry for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're not saying to place your bets, but...
So yeah, shouts out to Adam Online and Perfect Stealth. They're going to be going at it, and hopefully they won't keep us waiting.
Godspeed, guys.
What did throw me off, has been throwing me off as I've been playing this game, is I think you mentioned this last recording, Nitroid, but the audio loop where it just kind of cuts back to the song.
Oh, right.
Oh yeah, that's been messing with me too.
I've been noticing that more often, right? But to that note, going back to my Silent Hill comparison, it looks like Metal Gear and Castlevania aren't the only ones that are getting the GOG treatment. Silent Hill 4 was also just published a few days ago.
Yeah, that's weird. Wonder why just 4?
I don't remember 4 having a PC port even, just 2 and 3.
It did. It was so funny. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, dude, wouldn't it be hilarious if... Because this was when the rumors were starting to pop up that Silent Hill 4 was going to show up, like a day before it actually did. And he was like, it would be funny if they just released Silent Hill 4 on its own. Not 2, not 3, just 4. And then that's exactly what happens. Because 4 is not... I think it's an understatement to say that it's not really the fan favorite.
It's pretty divisive, and it's not even just divisive in a sense that it's split in the fandom on whether people like it or not. But even myself, I'm really divisive and ambivalent about it personally. Like, I appreciate the game, but I'll be damned if I have to play through it again.
The same friend made a great point about how you could easily fix that game. Take the combat out.
Oh my gosh.
He was exactly right when he said this, but that game does not feel like it should have had combat.
I never played it.
It's interesting, and it has some really creative ideas that just, at the same time, it doesn't quite feel like a Silent Hill game, but it's really all over the place. I mean, it has an interesting backstory of how it wasn't initially going to be a Silent Hill game. It was just going to be sort of a standalone thing, and then they turned it into Silent Hill 4, and I don't actually know the full story there, but that's kind of the gist of it.
They Super Mario 2'd it.
Yep, kind of.
Gotcha.
So now that you mentioned this combat thing, I kind of had a light bulb moment. I'm wondering now, so if anybody doesn't know, and Nitroid, keep me honest, because again, it's been a while since I've played. The combat in Silent Hill 4, it's mostly melee based, and you have to charge your weapon. And it's actually the amount of time you charge is a huge factor into how you're gonna hit things, your strategy with bosses, your strategy with ghosts, which by the way, ghosts are a mob that can't die in the game. So, good luck on that one. But it the way it's implemented almost feels like you're in a dream. You know how you have a dream when you're fighting somebody and your punches aren't doing anything?
Yeah, it's all wading through mud.
Right. That's exactly what the Silent Hill 4 combat feels like. And I'm wondering if that was intentional or just really poorly implemented. Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, maybe. And then you look at Silent Hill Homecoming, where they tried to make it kind of combat centric, and that's just hilariously bad in comparison.
And it makes even less sense.
Yep.
It directly contradicts their twist.
Yeah, it does, because, I won't get into it if anybody hasn't played it, but you're not missing much.
I was going to say, if somebody's up our ass for spoiling Homecoming, then you need to, advocate better for yourself.
If you've played Silent Hill 2, you've played Homecoming.
Yeah.
Except way better.
You've played, yeah.
It's
You
just
ate a
laughable.
filet mignon. Don't go get a Big Mac.
Yeah, it's. I got to go back and play Silent Hill 4 because it does have some really compelling elements.
It does.
I love the idea of having the two worlds where you've got your apartment that's, when you're in your apartment building, which is kind of your safe room, it's first person and you can kind of look around and interact with it to a degree. And then you travel through a hole in your bathroom wall that takes you into Silent Hill. I don't remember. Is it Silent Hill or like a town adjacent to Silent Hill? Or I don't remember the specifics of the story. It's been a really long time.
Yeah, if I recall correctly,
Someone's going to correct us.
yeah, I can't wait. You're trapped in your apartment because you are in the apartment of Walter Sullivan, who is currently at the tail end of his 21 Sacraments ritual, in which he basically goes on a serial murder spree to summon his mother, whom actually abandoned him as a child.
Ouch.
Yeah, sucks for him. Anyways, yeah, I think it's just a quest of you trying to prevent that. And one thing I did like about the game, and again, this goes back to my ambivalence about this entry in the series, is the game you play as, I forgot his name, Henry Townsend, I think his name is. Yeah. And that's actually a great thing to point out because Henry Townsend as a character, kind of forgettable. He's almost like doesn't have that much dialogue. I think there's one point where he walks in on one of his acquaintances body bloodied up, and his only response is like, "Are you okay?" or some shit like that. But I think that was deliberate in a sense that the story of Silent Hill 4 is not the story of Henry Townsend. He is just a guide for you as you go through the story of Walter Sullivan. And I always thought that was cool. But at the same time, I hate escort missions and I hate unkillable enemies.
And it's a good comparison there because going back to that same friend I mentioned earlier, he sort of drew a comparison between what Silent Hill 4 seemed to be going for and the Clock Tower series, which is very similar to what you described, where it's more about the family than it is about the protagonist, if you've ever played those games.
Yeah, I have. And I really love the first Clock Tower on the SNES, so.
Yeah, and it seems like Silent Hill 4 could have been sort of a modern take on those, but then they had to sort of shoehorn combat in.
Yeah.
But what I liked the most about 4 was this idea of taking a safe room, which is your apartment. Now, the idea is over time, as you play the game, your apartment room that you use as your safe room, essentially, is slowly possessed by, spirits or influences from Silent Hill. And you have to sort of make calculated decisions on how you're going to exorcise your room to make it safe again. Otherwise, you can actually get hurt in it. And that idea of taking the safe room and slowly, gradually making it unsafe is a really interesting concept. So it becomes like when you start, your comfort can be found in your apartment and the dangerous area is Silent Hill. And by the end of the game, if you haven't really been taking care of your room, then it sort of swaps, which is really interesting.
And I was going to say, if I recall correctly, that actually affects your ending in a sense that it's one of two factors that affects your ending. So yeah, it's not only something that kind of flips its head, but it's almost something that's mandatory to determine your conclusion.
You need to exercise your room, bucko.
My apartment ain't got no business looking like this.
Faces coming out of the walls.
Damn, bitch, you live like this?
Yeah.
And another game I've been playing was the Avengers. And something that game did that really just made it not as fun for me was the whole how they added in gear and leveling up the gear, and just all the stuff was basically it really didn't matter. It didn't really affect combat that much, It was just kind of whatever I had equipped was yeah, that'll work, that's fine. And I can get how eventually for end game people on multiplayer that could matter, but it kind of dragged it down. That's something that Metal Gear Survive did that I kind of didn't like either, where it was just all right, this is a different sledgehammer with 30 plus critical rate. I don't know.
I'll be honest, any interest I had in the Avengers, whatever little was left, went away with Endgame.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Yeah, I feel like Avengers, at least the concept, the IP, is not something that you want to try to aim the loot shooter at.
Yeah, that was like the part of just like running around in combat and being Hulk and being Iron Man. Like that was fun as shit. But I was like, I don't need gear options with like, if anything, just like eventually give me a new suit or eventually give me a new thing. It's like, cool, now you're leveled up. Like I just miss Chrono Trigger style leveling up, where it's just like, all right, yeah, you're leveled up. Cool, these things went up. There you go.
Well, the game is like, it's got such a prestige brand attached to it that you can tell they wanted to get as much money out of it as possible. So what's a way to take a game and stretch it out as far as we can and make as much money from it as possible and bleed every player as dry as we can? Oh, games as a service.
Yeah, well, I think in that too, in their defense, it is pretty much all just like cosmetic stuff that you buy, with that.
Oh, well, that's not as bad.
No.
Yeah, that I don't
But
mind.
still, like once I played through the story, I was like, no, I'm good. I'm done with this. like I'm not playing multiplayer with it. I don't know. It's just done.
Well, in terms of like good multiplayer experiences, so I have been playing Star Wars Squadron, and that is the first time I really felt like my VR headset has paid itself off, because holy shit, it's easy to jump right in. I love actually spent like a few hours playing multiplayer online. I was able to jump in with my friends who weren't playing VR, and it was almost like playing the Star Wars arcade game with your friends. I had my fan blasting, I had I had my headset on, and it looks really, really, really good in VR, and even on I haven't played it much on PC or on a regular monitor, but. In any case, I'm trying to shop for a throttle controller, or what do you call it? HOTAS or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how to say
And
it.
it's almost as hard to get one of those as it is to get a PlayStation 5 or a RTX 3080 right now.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, with
Flight Simulator out.
Yeah, with Flight
Oh,
Simulator,
right,
Squadron
right.
out.
Makes sense.
I was going to say that was really surprising that there's that much demand, but yeah, Flight Sim. I forgot about that. That's one I want to try. Probably crash in the first 30 seconds.
They should do like a liquid steak simulator for that, where it's like you have to take out 2 F-35s with a Hind D.
Yeah, how the fuck did he do that?
In a snowstorm.
He was on meth.
Come on, 2 F-16s. Did he just have to wait for them to circle back? Because there's no way he fucking caught up. Like,
Zero visibility. They just crashed on their own and he took credit.
good call.
If as soon as he took off his like shades in that codec call, I would have been like, wait a second. Okay, now that you're here, how did you take out those fighter jets?
I don't know, brother. How did you take out a tank?
I don't know.
Well, there you go.
Well, I think that is actually a good segue. Another good segue. So we know that we have a huge backlog of questions, and we haven't forgot about them. Just a lot has been going on, and I guess we can start taking those questions, right?
Yeah, we got a bunch of questions.
Yeah, sorry to everybody for taking so long to get to them. Jeez, a lot. Okay, Lars Dudestein asks, Kojima says that Death Stranding made more than enough to fund their next project, but do you think there would be enough of a hype train to fuel another 5 years of cryptic trailers? And does Kojima Productions seem to have longevity as a AAA company? Now, this is interesting because following Death Stranding's release, we didn't get a lot of sales numbers. They were very quiet on it, and Sony is usually right out of the gate. If their game is doing well, they're like, hey, look how many copies we've sold. And they were very muted on it.
Yeah.
But then later, over time, there were just sort of like little bits here and there where they've said, yeah, it was financially successful, and we know it did very well on Steam after the PC release. But at the same time, you can already see that like the collector's edition of Death Stranding with the BB in a jar replica, has been marked down by 50%, and it's on sale pretty regularly.
Yeah.
There was also a clip of like I think it was like in a Kojima Productions video or something, or like an interview. Oh, I think it was the interview with Jeff Keighley. Keighley asked him about if he could predict the future because, Corona, Death Stranding, so and so. And his response was, if I could predict the future, I would have made a game that sold more.
Yeah.
But that could have just been him being coy about it,
Right.
Like, haha, I like to make money. But should we read that as an indication of success for the game?
Yeah, I did see it kind of like as like a cheeky thing. He was like,
Yeah.
hey, people didn't really, it didn't get like 100 like reception as he thought. It was a lot
Yeah,
more
the
split.
response
Where there was a lot of
seemed
people
very
like,
muted.
yo, this game sucks. Like, like there was tons of that where it was like, nah, fuck this. I was here for Metal Gear, but I'm not here for Walking Simulator, which I definitely hated people that, that when they reduced it down to that. But
Yeah.
it's definitely a lot more to it than that. But
a lot of people were expecting another Metal Gear type game, and when they didn't get that, I think that might have been what put them off.
To that point, I mean, okay, to answer the question, no, I don't think that it's viable for them to have like that 5 years where they develop that. But I guess I'm looking at it more of, is that something that they would even want to do? Like, the Strand system has already been established. They have a foundation for it. We're already looking at the next gen. And now with Sony being so flexible about adapting to PC and crossplay, I'm wondering if that is even something, like the whole 5-year trailer plan is even something that is viable or something that they want to do in this, I guess, climate, quote unquote.
And two, you got to wonder if it's going to take them another full 5 years, because they might have like some of the gameplay systems, already in place, and they could just kind of go like, all right, we can Majora's Mask this and just kind of, crank out another version of it. We can throw together another story, but.
And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to is I think he said something like, we definitely want to implement the Stranding system in other ways.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I want to see more. I couldn't give a damn about like more cryptic trailers. I want to see what we can do with the Stranding system.
I don't think we're going to get like DLC for Death Stranding if that's on the table. They like you said, they got their engine.
Yeah.
They've got Decima, they know what they're doing now. I don't know if they'll necessarily go back to the Strand system. They might have some sort of an analog in future games, because he definitely seems interested in sort of that interplay between people. Asynchronous multiplayer, as it's called. But in terms of what are they going to do next? Is it Death Stranding 2? Is it Death Stranding DLC? I don't think that's going to happen. And I guess, he seems to want to do a horror game. And if you start getting into that more enigmatic storytelling territory like you would expect from a horror title, maybe they could start going into that cryptic area again. But at this point, after Death Stranding, I almost feel like they would need a sort of AAA franchise anchored to that in order to drive interest, Otherwise, people are going to look at Kojima Productions and be like, oh, look, what's he going to do? Another walking simulator? And they're going to write it off without even looking into it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think they've got enough there to sustain them. And I don't really have anything that I'm basing this on. It's just sort of a gut feeling. But I suspect that Death Stranding didn't cost as much as people might assume it did.
Yeah, with just the methods that they were actually implementing to do everything, yeah.
I can't actually back that up, but I don't think it was a failure by any means. I just, it wasn't this world-changing game like a lot of people expected it would be.
Maybe in some ways, like maybe the enigma of it all sort of made it seem longer or more invested in our minds.
Yeah, because we all sort of like pumped this thing up as, oh my God, what is this going to be? And then it just ended up being, oh, it's just a kind of a creative video game that does some new stuff.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, do you guys remember when they had that Cloverfield trailer?
Yeah.
What movie had that?
Cloverfield.
There was it was a shut up. No, it was like a blockbuster movie that had the Cloverfield trailer, and people were like, and there was like an ARG.
You mean the movie that it came with?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
just remember that there was that Cloverfield trailer, right? And then they had like the ARG, and it was going on for like a few months, and then the movie just sort of happened.
Yeah. Oh, what was that? I don't remember.
I mean, does it matter now?
No.
I mean, like I said,
happened.
Cloverfield came and went. Death
was all
Stranding
right.
came and went.
And it was okay. You know, I almost feel like the metagame around it, or like the marketing around it, was more interesting than the end product.
Like, okay, I can't say I feel that way because I really got invested into the gameplay and, you know, building the network and Stranding and whatnot. But I will definitely say that about Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, that was the hype before that. I just remember being way more fun than the actual game.
Oh yeah, that was insane. We didn't know what was going on.
I made a few friends because of that, so.
That one trailer that dropped, man, that just like, that when it showed the gameplay, and snake diving, you know, that was just like, everybody was like, holy shit, this is going to be the best Metal Gear ever. And
A new breed of stealth.
Yeah.
And it's like the horse.
What's impressive about that whole marketing campaign is that they were also, despite the fact that they were very enigmatic about everything and everything was, you know, sort of coded in mystery, Kojima Productions was also very transparent about it. You know, they showed a lot.
yeah.
But despite how much they showed, you never felt like you knew what was going on. Past a certain point.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe part of it was projection in a way? Like, we kind of... I'm almost worried that Cyberpunk 2077 is doing this now, but we almost sort of put in our heads what we thought the game was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, we took it further, and we're almost marketing the game to ourselves in a way.
Yeah, that is a great way to put it.
Yeah, the amount of memes that we made for MGSV was just ridiculous. Like every time a trailer would drop, it was like, okay, here's a whole new batch of shit.
Just surgically picking apart the trailers.
Yeah. The good old days.
So, next question. Lord Emmerich asks, what is your favorite of the non-Kojima games? And in parentheses, he adds, in before someone picks Snake's Revenge. This one's easy for me. It's going to be Ghost Babel. I love that game. I think it's a near perfect 2D stealth game with a couple of blemishes, but otherwise, I think that represents sort of the core idea of Metal Gear better than anything after MGS3. And the story's like surprisingly mature too, for a Game Boy game, for crying out loud.
I'm going to say Twin Snakes because I love schlocky stuff. So Twin Snakes, ironically. And then probably Ghost Babel, unironically, for the reasons Nitroid listed.
Yeah, Ghost Babel's definitely good, but I'll say Rising, just because it kind of made Metal Gear. Well, I mean, I guess there's other games like Acid that took it outside of the genre, but making it a card game, but just turning it into a fun action game that had a little bit of stealth. You know, there was a tiny bit in there. You got to give it to it. But just taking that formula and just in that atmosphere in the universe, that's kind of what I was like, cool. We're still in Metal Gear territory, but now we're just going full ninja mode and cutting shit up. I appreciated that game for what it was, and it didn't take itself too seriously. You know, good villains, good boss fights. It had the combat engine that they made for that Platinum did. You know, it was great. So,
I think it's a testament to the success of Rising that every Metal Gear game has memes that are generated as a result of it, but none of the non-Kojima games tend to have memes come out of them. But Rising,
sure as
my
shit did.
God.
Yeah.
Rising almost has more memes coming out of it than any other game in the franchise.
They have memes that include the word meme in them.
Yeah.
That's next level.
It's like meta. Yeah.
And to your point, like, I think it's a great example of a universe being explored beyond its original sort of restrictions.
Yeah.
So instead of a stealth game about Snake, we get to see sort of the world of Raiden after the end of Liquid's insurrection. And most people don't, when it comes to like spin-offs and stuff, most people don't explore those type of avenues or diverge that much. So I can appreciate it.
Yeah, if it isn't Kojima, they just sort of ignore it.
Right.
Yeah. I hate to fart in the elevator here, but I'll call it canon.
Gonna start some fights.
I'll call back to the other episode.
That actually brings us to another question that we had that was like, oh, here it is. Lil X Recluse asked, if you could make a Metal Gear spinoff, what would the plot / gameplay be like?
I've got way too many answers for this.
I don't want to answer first because I asked the question, but I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, go for it. I got to think for a bit if you got something ready.
Yeah, so I was thinking about something a little less, I want to say, active in terms of gameplay. I would love to see sort of like a thriller type game that is about Ocelot being a saboteur. Him just sort of fucking shit up. I don't know what genre that'll be quite yet, but I'm sort of leaning towards like the puzzle / visual novel, like Phoenix Wright type game.
Okay.
And you sort of just go through different periods and, you know, manipulate and connive. Alternatively, I would love sort of an anthology game in a similar vein to like VR missions where the gameplay would be very uniform in a way, like the mechanics would be pretty uniform throughout the game, but it would have different scenarios that outline different plots about the universe. So almost like a bunch of Snake Tales if Snake Tales was actually canon.
Yeah, I like that idea of the anthology of just kind of having like a core thing where you're like switching up the modes. And I also like that idea of the Ocelot thing where you're kind of like trying to figure things out. But I would like it kind of to be more like a dialogue tree thing where you're trying to like navigate conversations and like I don't know, there could be like a cool lie detecting system where like they get suspicious of you kind of, and then you can drop that down with something. I don't know. I'm just kind of making up stuff as I go.
Right.
That could be fun. I think like just like the Cobra unit could be a great system to kind of show off that anthology thing.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of what they did with Avengers where it's like, here's this main system where you're fighting, but each character has different moves and different abilities, and some of them can fly, some of them can jump around really fucking far. And then shit, multiplayer, the pain, the fury, all that together, that would be like a good tag team game to play. Where it's like, all right, cool, just I don't know. I think that could be a good fun game, but just don't make it a fucking game as a service.
Yeah, please.
And going back to Squadrons, from what I've seen in Squadrons so far, they've done a really good job implementing like class-based systems in a combat, like a very active combat scenario. So even though we are doing dogfighting with like 4 different ships, you can see very different, very subtle differences between, what each ship does and how each ship is customized and configured. So to that end, I would love to have like a very active combat type gameplay style where, you have these very distinct classes that are the Cobra unit.
Yeah, just being in that like stealth environment too, where you could just go around and have different abilities and stuff, as them doing separate infiltration missions and kind of have like introductions to their character and kind of do a couple things that they would be good at. Like, what would the end be sent off to do? Like, he would do some super sniping mission or something, It'd just be more, like, dictated to their style of fighting.
Yeah.
I just pictured this warning message or this disclaimer that was like, you must complete all Cobra tutorial missions before you can log into multiplayer.
The Fury, they were like, all right, man, we need you to go burn this weed field. He's like, got it. Every game has a fucking weed burning mission.
Look, man, San Andreas, it's impact.
For sure.
I think there were several in Far Cry 5.
Yep. Each one of them makes you a little high when you play it. You're like, whoa, this is what being high is like.
That whole game was about getting high.
Yeah, you're right. Just tripping.
Look, if we're going to bring up stuff that we don't like in games, now that we're bringing up Far Cry 5, if we do this Metal Gear thing, if we have to have a situation where the protagonist gets kidnapped by, like, the bad guys, please only have it happen once. I can believe if Snake gets caught by Sniper Wolf once as he's trying to, like, rush to find Meryl. I wouldn't believe it if they did it, like, 200 times. Or I guess it was 9 in Far Cry 5.
Was it really?
I think it was, I want to say it was like, it was at least, it was a handful of times.
They kept drugging you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
Like,
yeah. That's not fair.
And I would I heard comments of people like going into a house and like sitting in a corner and then they'd still somehow get kidnapped.
There's an intro where you could just sit there and then like where you're supposed to escape, like you're sitting there eating dinner with the guy and then he's like, I'll be right back. And then like you're supposed to escape, but if you just like sit there, that's like a whole ending that happens right there. He's like, oh, okay, you didn't try to escape. All right. I forget what happened.
Yeah, that's
4.
that's Far Cry 4. If you
Yeah.
just let Pagan Min do his thing for a little bit.
That's hilarious that you can just end the game that way.
Can you imagine if you just like
Send back to Gamefly. All right.
it makes me think about like in Metal because I'm actually at this part on the MGS1 PC, like the part with Johnny where he has to go to the bathroom. Like I know that you can actually wait for him and be like he'd just be like, oh, I guess nothing happened. What if you the part where where like Gray Fox gets you out if you really just insist on staying in the cell?
Yeah.
What if you actually just waited for Johnny to get out the bathroom?
And he just gets out and shuts the door.
Yeah, it's just like a bonus scene where he's just like,
It's got to open somehow.
I'll try to help Meryl out. Yeah.
What about you, Nitro? What about a spinoff? What would you do with a spinoff?
Okay. Trying to think of which way to go about this because I don't want to take up too much time.
Please, no, by all means. I'm curious now because you seem pretty impassioned about this.
Well, one idea I thought would be interesting is to expand the co-ops concept from Peace Walker out a bit. You know that game A Way Out by Joseph Fares? And I'm probably mispronouncing his name.
That game was great.
If you could sort of take that same concept of having a full Metal Gear game that is 2-player co-op through the whole thing, and you have sort of, let's say you're trying to infiltrate a facility, but you've got to do these missions in parallel that might not necessarily be at the same parts of the facility.
Yeah.
So like one person is on one side of it and the other person's on the other side, and you're like hacking terminals to like open doors and clear routes and shut off power and doing things like that. And like you have this sort of quasi-asynchronous stealth campaign where two people have to work together in tandem, sometimes together and sometimes apart. Like, make it a non-canon...
Dude, Liquid Snake and Psycho Mantis together? Holy shit.
Oh,
Take
man.
it non... Or I'll tell you, you want to do more interesting. If you've ever seen those videos of David Hayter and Cam Clark just riffing on each other and how much chemistry they seem to have, do a non-canon game where it's Solid Snake and Liquid Snake working together and sort of doing jabs at each other in sort of a... Make them friendly. It would be interesting to see that.
So this game actually just announced it's not really being supported anymore, so rest in peace. But Resident Evil Resistance, that is just like a pure, non-canon what if multiplayer game.
Yeah.
And it does exactly what you say, where there's these like little interactions between canon and non-canon characters. And everybody knows that like Annette wasn't playing a game with teenagers and Jill Valentine right as the Raccoon City outbreak was starting, but they just kind of humor it for the gameplay, and it worked.
Yeah, just kind of play with it.
Yeah, for anybody to be like, this isn't canon, wait a minute. It's like, all right, come on, catch up.
Yeah.
You must be good at parties.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a lot of fun to do. I think another interesting one, and I may have mentioned this before, is I want to see like a feudal Japan take on the concept, where it's more like Tenchu in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Phoenix Wright do something like that where it was like
Yakuza did too. A lot of franchises have done that lately. And I think it would work well for Metal Gear. And again, it's based on that like one piece of fan art I saw like ages ago, and it just stuck in my head.
They could have a lot of creative freedom with like the gadgets and stuff that you use too. Like you just have this like weirdo guy that's like, here's something I made today. It like takes out guards with a flying needle dart, just like, all right, cool. Like,
Yeah, imagine talking to like a Nastasha-esque character in that setting. And I don't like literally mean like a Russian lady who's talking. I've seen like that kind of character.
yeah. Weapons specialist type. Yeah.
Explaining to you the history of the grappling hook.
Yeah.
that was one of my favorite aspects of Sekiro was like learning about sort of the intricacies and the lore behind the different equipment and the weapons and stuff. So yeah, I'm all for it.
So you could have this really interesting historical piece that also draws from like Japanese spiritualism and legends, because you can sort of, integrate that into the story in a way that Metal Gear's always done, where it's sort of that magical realism. And I just feel like there's a lot of room to sort of explore there. That's something I'd really want to see. And I guess the third one is just, it's kind of hard to explain, but the best I can say is that I would like to see sort of a gameplay-centric Metal Gear, where the story isn't necessarily the focal point, but they take the various iterations of Metal Gear throughout the years. So looking strictly at the 3D games, let's say Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, and 4. To just take those 4 games, and you come up with a game that mixes and matches different aspects of those games into like a VR mission sort of thing. So let's say you've got a mission where you've got to get from A to B, and your abilities are a mix of different things from different games, and some things are enabled. So let's say you have the overhead, you're locked to using the overhead camera instead of the 3D camera. You have first-person view, but you can't roll, and you can't use CQC. But you can stalk. So like you take like different mechanics from the different games, and you set up restrictions of things that you can do.
No crawling, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you create these little challenges based around, you can only use these moves. And I think that would be really interesting to try.
Do I hear like multiplayer, like high scoreboard? It's like almost like Mario Maker.
I was about to say Metal Gear Maker for sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's something I've always wanted, was like a VR missions maker.
Yeah, we've talked about Metal Gear Maker, I think, before. But that's a good way to do it with like just different modifiers. And I don't know how complex it is to program a guard patrol, but like that doesn't seem like it. I've heard you say like that it's really hard to like program that stuff, but I think if you were just to keep it basic and then have the engine like take care of the behavior of like tracking you down and stuff, but then you could go in and trace the guard route, be like, all right, do this little path right here, and then check out this corner. Just set it to loop. I feel like that could be possible, especially in that VR setting where you can just build the stages and not be worrying about level design, and it's just everything's cubic.
That game we had spoken about before, Volume, the one that's, very like VR missions inspired, Metal Gear VR missions inspired. I think that also, that pretty much runs off of custom maps. And it's like you said, where, you put a designated path, and then the AI just behaves based off of like a standard that everybody's familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make maps in a game like Trials with all of these different options and behaviors, I don't know why you couldn't do that with Metal Gear if it was designed that way from the ground up. Game AI is sophisticated enough for independent developers at this point that there's no reason you shouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's like going back to the comparison to Mario Maker. Mario Maker works because Mario is based off of this sort of like grid system, right?
Yeah.
You could follow the same logic with Metal Gear. It's based off of this like grid, and you have your guards with this specific cone vision. Really play off of those standards, that rigid conformity of Metal Gear.
And you wouldn't even need a grid system necessarily. I mean, there are so many games out there now with build-a-level options in them that are incredibly sophisticated. So, I don't know. I just don't think it's on their radar to do a game where user-created content is paramount like that.
Oh, no. Definitely not. But it's still an interesting idea.
Yeah, so those are my 3.
Dude, you could, instead of calling it Metal Gear Maker, you could just call it Outer Heaven. And it's just
oh my God.
endless battle. Yeah, just have people making their missions for everybody. You do it. That's what I tell Konami to do. You make it. I don't want to make any fucking missions. Yeah.
Give it to me. I'll make a Metal Gear game.
Even Mario has like just play levels generated by Nintendo.
Yeah.
So they should, it's pretty much you do it mode.
Now give us Zelda Maker.
That's definitely gonna need a new you do it mode from me.
One more question. Is that what we're doing?
Which question are we picking, boys?
At Lulsalid ask, what would you think about Metal Gear going RPG? Kind of tacking on to that last question about, So I guess, what would you do if it was an RPG?
Acid is pretty close to RPG in some respects. You know, you could tie stats into things and equipment. You would have to make it more. Okay, here's an idea. Rather than one specific linear mission, what if it's and I hate to use the term, but we've already been there. What if it's more open world, but say in an urban setting where you're not necessarily always sneaking around, but you're also interacting with the populace to a degree, gathering information, that kind of thing.
Like The Division, kind of?
Yeah, kind of, but you're also like accumulating gear and experience and things like that.
I'd rather have turn-based battles than go looter-shooter, to be honest, if we're going RPG. I mean, I like the stuff in Peace Walker.
I don't know if The Division is the right way to put it. Not The Division.
Gotcha.
I like the idea of an open world that's very condensed, but still open world. Because the truth is, the problem with open world it's not inherently bad. It's just its implementation. It really is a case of like, it's not the size, it's how you use it. Because it's true. Like I've seen some like really immersive open world games, but at the same time, my fear about any sort of RPG game, especially one that is very like free flowing and open world, that it ends up being a situation where it's like the gameplay loop is just like your numbers getting bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's a thought. Less The Division, more Deus Ex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where interactions you have with NPCs are going to change the outcome of your mission. You know, you've got different options. Are you going to go in stealth? You have different approach vectors. Are you going to kill guards? How's that going to reflect on you? This kind of more persistent world where it's not just sneaking into areas, but you're kind of living in it as well.
That'd be a good Liquid Snake game, too. You could kind of just play different roles and act accordingly.
Yeah, emphasis on the espionage.
Yeah.
One thing that I would love to see implemented if it was an RPG, and I feel like Deus Ex did this, but if it didn't, then Morrowind definitely did, is the way your stats working not necessarily being sort of arbitrarily configured by like a menu system, but allowing you to build stats just by like the more you do something. So if you decide to take more of like a vertical approach where you're using grappling hooks and you're sneaking in, you know, from the top down. If you're the type of person who took the top vent in Metal Gear Solid 1,
You get an infiltration point, yeah.
yeah, instead of the bottom vent, then this would be like the skill tree for you. And the more you use like a specific gun, you know, if you use your SOCOM a lot, then your level,
your proficiency
skill level
in it.
with your proficiency in small arms gets bigger. Like you're better or whatever. I think that's very. I think that would be cool.
So what I'm getting out of this is that we need a new Deus Ex game.
Starring Right.
Hot take: I've actually liked every Deus Ex game, including Invisible War.
Oof.
How dare you.
It had its charm.
Deus Ex card taken away.
Yeah, I was about to say.